Are you tired of getting absolutely obliterated in the Dark Aether? Are you tired of not having friends to go and actually get these schematics with so that you can use these sick items in-game? Well, look no further. I thought it was impossible, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, I've cracked the case. We have figured it out. This will be a full solo guide for the Dark Aether, and this will allow you to get these schematics and acquisitions in either the normal, sigil version of the Dark Aether, which is the slightly easier one with more time, or you can even do this solo using the Elder Sigil, which will grant you the actual schematics so that you can have these upgrades permanently. However, this will require you to have a few things to go in order to make this easier, and I will show you the easiest solo strategy in order to complete this. I originally thought that this was going to be undoable solo, but I've been practicing and figuring out a meta and a strategy and a route to go about this, and I hope this does help. If it does at all, just drop a like. That's all I ask for. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Trying to hit 550k before the end of the year, so it would be greatly appreciated. But also just want to say I think you'll learn some really cool stuff from this video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's start with the things you want to bring into your match. I'm going to go over a full loadout setup and what you should bring into the game before you do anything else. Now, we're not going to be able to immediately jump into the Dark Aether, but this is what I'm bringing into the match. In particular, we have the Golden Armor Plate and the Aether Blade. If you don't already have these acquisitions once, then this is going to be significantly harder for you to do. I believe the Golden Armor Plate is like the best item in the game, and it's almost impossible to do this solo without it, or at least having one of the acquisitions. The Aether Blade is a massive help too. So if you don't have these, I would strongly reconsider until you maybe do have them, or you can still give it a try if you're feeling, feisty enough. But we're going to bring these in, and I'm also going to very much suggest having a legendary Aether tool and either a tier 2 or tier 3 Pack-a-Punch crystal, because we're not going to want to approach this until both of our weapons are tier 3. I'm also going to bring in a Wonderwaff and also the tier pistols. I'll go ahead and show you my build for these on screen right now so you can just copy and bring these along. It's going to be your primary weapon, although your Wonderwaff is basically your main form of damage control and like crowd control inside of the Dark Aether. But it is of vital importance that you use a legendary tool on this and get both of these to tier 3. They don't need to be tier 3 immediately, like you don't need a flawless crystal for both of them. We just need to pack-a-punch them throughout the match. But this is what we're bringing in. You'll notice we don't really have any perks, but we will take care of that later. The Dog Bone is optional. You don't need to bring this in necessarily. It is a help, but not like a massive game changer. You can also acquire this dog during the game itself. So while this helps, it is by no means required. But while we're in the game now with all of the stuff we have, this is kind of our loadout. We're going to go in and start doing contracts until we get all of our perks. And you're also going to want to look for a few different pieces of equipment. Now, the thing is, we also need another item to get into the Dark Aether, and that is going to be either the regular sigil or the Elder Sigil, depending on what you're doing. If you have an Elder Sigil, most likely you're bringing that into the match anyways, and that will start you immediately in the hard Dark Aether. But if you get a regular sigil, you can just grind tier 3 contracts, and it will eventually drop while you're doing that. So you can be building points for your perks and other equipment at the same time as looking for a sigil. This is the point in the game that you have to decide what you want to do. If you want to go into the normal Dark Aether, then you're looking for the orange sigil, and the Elder Sigil can only be acquired after you've already entered the Dark Aether. So don't worry about that for now. If you're just a first time going into the Dark Aether by yourself, we'll start with the regular one. But eventually you'll get it out of a tier 3 contract, and hopefully by this point you've acquired all of your perks and you've gotten both of your weapons to tier 3 Pack-a-Punch. It may take you a little while, but these items should help you get a head start on that. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do before we go into the Dark Aether is either find a buy station in the tier 3 zone or in the tier 2 zone, and we're going to load up on a whole lot of these. We're going to buy a ton of self-revives depending on how much money you have to work with. Now, also, in this game, I didn't even have a tier 3 buy station. It just didn't spawn there, so I couldn't get extra Gersh devices, but a really good tip for this is to load up on extra Gershes inside of your inventory slot. I would say you can maybe have 4 to 5, maybe even 6 self-revives, and then have the rest of your inventory be additional Gersh devices. That can really help, especially for one of the contracts that we'll get to in a little bit. But however you want to parse it out, make sure you have at least a surplus of 4, if not 5 self-revives. It's going to help you a lot, and you can fill up the rest with any other equipment or Gersh devices, most preferably. Now, when it's time to go into the Dark Aether, this is where the strategy begins. Now, the order you want to do these in may change depending on if you're in the regular Dark Aether or the Elder Sigil Dark Aether. The differences are a little bit of difficulty, but also the normal Dark Aether, you have 30 minutes to do all this stuff, whereas Elder, you have only 15. But basically, once we spawn in here, the first thing we're going to do is go for the Outlast contract, and this is over the castle, over the backside of this hill, and it's actually located inside the window of the bus. And starting that out will take us immediately to our Outlast that's only about 20 feet away, and we're going to start out just by doing that. Once you're inside this Outlast, I think it's very easy to get in this sort of loop where you're using your Wonder Waff alongside your Aether Blade and charging up Energy Mine very quickly. You can kind of use these in combination with each other. They sort of complement one another where you're getting kills with your Aether Blade, and Wonder Waff will set your, Energy Mine to come up right away. And this shouldn't be too difficult. I actually feel the Outlast is probably the easiest one in the game, so we'll get through this one nice and quickly. Remember to get your rewards from the Rift portal. Obviously, I don't think I need to tell you that, but obviously you want to make sure that if you want to go back into the Dark Aether to get some Elder Sigils, if you want to do the more difficult one to get schematics and stuff like that. So after you've gotten your Rift, next we're going to head over to the Aether Extractor. Now, this is the same one that's like, in the regular map, but it doesn't have any mercenaries. You just have to disable all of the rockets, and there's only 3 of them, but they can be a little bit tricky depending on how you approach them. So I'll show you a very easy route to hit all of them without putting you in too much trouble or making you run up and down a whole lot of stairs. But the bunny is going to be located on the top of this building over here, and once it's activated, we're going to run over to this zip line that's on the side of the castle. It's going to take you right up to the top, and once you get up here, there's going to be a crowd of enemies waiting for you, and if you don't have any Gersh devices or an Energy Mine on deck, you can usually just shoot a Wonder Waff shot and throw an Aether Blade and then immediately just activate it. And the thing is, it's okay if you die here, because it kind of glues you to the rocket for a little while. There's this really slow animation where it deactivates, and it kind of locks your movement for a bit, but this is what we have the self-revives for. If you go down during this, then honestly, it's fine. Don't worry about it too much, because you should have enough to compensate for that. And also, the golden armor plate can protect you a little bit while you're building this. It maybe restores your health, while you're, sort of deactivating it, and it's incredibly useful. Now, after you've gotten that first rocket, we're going to jump down to this balcony from the castle and then run up the stairs. It can be a little dangerous here, and I will say this as a rule of thumb. If you're running through these castles, going in these very tight corridors and hallways, your first response to killing them should either be your pistols or your Aether Blade. Do not use your Wonder Waff in these spaces, because it kind of freezes the zombies for a bit and allows the ones that are chasing you to catch up with you. So you need to very quickly clear them out, and the best way to do that is either with the pistols or the Aether Blade. And so once you clear enough enemies, you get up here, you can either throw a Gersh device, shoot a Wonder Waff, throw an Aether Blade, whatever you got to do, deactivate the second one, and once this one is deactivated, again, even if you go down, it's usually okay. You can go over here and immediately jump off and then actually just glide to the last one. And again, same premise, throw a Gersh, do whatever you got to do, cover yourself, deactivate that last rocket, and that is that challenge completed. That one isn't too bad either. It's a little more tricky and involved than the Outlast contract. However, it is not the hardest one in the game, but with a little bit of luck and some effort, you'll be able to do all 3 of these. Now we're going to get to the tricky one, and this is the Escort ACV, but I have a couple of different ways that you can go about doing this that will give you some success. Couple things to note. Number one, if you're doing this in the regular Dark Aether, i.e. you're not using an Elder Sigil, then you're going to have a lot more time, but also you're not going to have quite as heavy spawns, but you will also, most importantly, not have these mega abominations that are there at the beginning and at the end, so just keep that in mind. And also, usually I've noticed in the normal Dark Aether, there are also turrets around the map at certain choke points that you can put these chips into, and the turrets can really help you out as well. If you do have the turrets and you have the chips, I recommend you save them for the very end, where it has to be stationary for a long time and what will probably be lower health as well. But also, a precision airstrike, if you have that as a kill streak, is nice to bring into for that last little bit. However, getting the ACV to the end is the tricky business, and this is where a lot of those surplus Gersh devices are going to come into play. These are by far the best item just for covering them and allowing it to move, not taking any damage. But what's really crazy is if, for instance, you want to get a different wonder weapon, you can actually get keys in the Dark Aether, and I'll put a map up on screen where all of the keys and doors are. You can grab them, and they will allow you access to secret rooms that typically have a drop or a wonder weapon. And the reason I bring this up, if you get the VR11, the VR11 wonder weapon will actually restore health to the ACV. ACV. So if it is, getting beat up too badly, you can actually shoot it with the VR11 and it will restore some of that health, which is incredibly broken. But if you don't have the VR11, it's not required. You can use this surplus of Gersh devices if you have it. And those, I feel, are actually the best tool for allowing it to travel without taking passive damage, because that's usually where this thing fails. And this one is going to be tricky. It may take you a few times, even if you have the proper strategy down. The reason I can't recommend the VR11 all the time is because there is currently no schematic for it, and you really have no guaranteed way to get a VR11. If you got lucky, or if you got a case in the match itself, then great. You could definitely use this to get the escort done. But this is the trickiest one for sure. But I think with a little bit of practice using this strategy, you will definitely get it. And that's all three of them done. And then you can immediately go and extract out of this portal over the top. And if you have these schematics, you will then keep them forever and can bring them back in either for another run or to do something else like the Red Worm boss and stuff like that. But this makes the Dark Aether somewhat manageable solo. If you're just dying to get these schematics and you just physically cannot do it by yourself, then obviously a team is going to be better for this. But this is a method that is workable for solo players. And I think that's what's important at the end of the day. It did seem impossible to do any of this solo, but now we've worked out a strategy and it does seem to be at least somewhat viable, which is good. But I really hope this did help, guys. If it did, drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and go have fun, go get those schematics, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.